Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais with another episode of the Yakking Show Business Channel. And this is a show where we bring you expert and interesting guests to give you tips and ideas to help you thrive and survive in your business in the interesting times we're heading into. But first, let's welcome Kathleen Beauvais, our co-host, and she will introduce our guest. Hi, Kathleen. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you so much for that. And thank you also very much for tuning into our show. We so appreciate having you. And as Peter mentioned, we do have another special guest with us today. We're so privileged to welcome Nicole Porter to the show. Hello, Nicole. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me today.
Nicole is the founder of Monomoy Social Media. She is a social media expert who helps small businesses navigate the very large and overwhelming world of social media and help them focus on what's really important. So let's just jump right in, Nicole. Can you tell us what the most important social media tip you can give to a small business owner in today's environment?
Sure. I think the number one thing, I heard this years ago, it still holds true, and I've kind of made it my mantra, and it is not marketing media, it is social media. So it is very important to talk to people on these platforms. So the number one tip I can give to people is don't just put out content and leave it. Make sure you're actively engaging with people. And I don't what by that I don't necessarily mean respond to comments. That is an important part of it. But I also mean go out and talk to other people, comment on their posts and create conversation, show your thought leadership.
Mm.
And that's going to take you much further than content alone. So that is my number one tip for anybody using social media.
And is
Mhm.
that would that apply to all platforms? So I mean, we know that LinkedIn is mostly for businesses, and Facebook it's usually social. But do you think that that applies to all of those platforms?
Absolutely, yeah. It goes across platforms. The more you can do it as your business, the better. With the exception of LinkedIn, a lot of times you will use your personal profile on LinkedIn over a business page. Although LinkedIn has made quite a few improvements to their business page
Mhm.
capabilities, so you can now interact as a business page, and that's probably new within the past 6 months. Previously, you couldn't do that. But the majority of the time, unless you're on LinkedIn and have built up a significant following on your personal profile, you would want to do it as your business on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, now Threads, YouTube, any place you can interact as your business to get that thought leadership and that brand recognition is really helpful.
Mm. Very good. So the the big question that we hear from a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs is which social media platform? I can't do everything. So how do I choose the best social media platform to direct my energies to? What's your advice there, Nicole?
I really think you have to look at your business and who you're trying to reach, and then you go from there. Who am
Hmm.
I trying to talk to, and where are those people hanging out? And I completely agree with what you just said, where you can't be everywhere. I am a big proponent of picking 1 to 2 places to really focus. And then, if you have a couple secondary ones, that's okay. But you need a hero platform. You need a
Hmm.
main platform where your people are going to be hanging out. For me and my business being a social media business, that's LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my number one platform, and Instagram is my secondary platform. But if you're a bakery, LinkedIn's probably not going to be your number one platform. You're probably going to be looking at Instagram and then Facebook as a secondary platform.
Hmm.
If you're a sportscaster, Twitter's probably going to be number one for you. So it really depends on your business and where your audience is hanging out. So I would have that person do research and see, okay, who is using what platform and which one has the most people that I want to connect with.
Hmm. And leading on from that, that would apply to the new ones that are springing up. We've had Mastodon. There's another one I've forgotten, Post, and now Blue Skies, which is a modern another version of Twitter. And I think it's Jack Dorsey, the original Twitter founder, started it. And it's easy to be tempted to be an early adopter of new technology and new platforms. But again, I think your suggestion, if your customers are going there or your audience is going there, you need to be there. But if not, maybe you should hold back. Is that right?
Exactly. Like, for instance, what you were talking about, where there's these Twitter competitors are starting to come out. And, Jack Dorsey's starting a new one, and Meta has their own. And if your audience is using Twitter already, then that might be a great place for you to start to have a presence and just kind of watch and see how it's going. But if your main audience is not on Twitter, there's no reason for you to start jumping on Twitter
Sure.
competitors. Yeah, so I completely agree with that. It's great to be an early adopter if your audience is there.
So, what are some of the biggest mistakes businesses make in their social media activities?
I think some of it is not being consistent, right? Not planning ahead. A lot of folks still don't do that. They'll just kind of wake up every day and say, okay, what am I going to post today? And I think when that happens, you more often than not end up not posting. So I think having a plan is really important and to keep you consistent. Making sure that you put it into your schedule, because the number one thing I see is people, it's the first, social media is the first thing that's going to fall off the bandwagon when you get busy. So if you don't have that hour set aside on, Monday afternoon to plan out your social for the next couple of weeks, then it's probably not going to happen. So not making it a priority is a big one. And then, like I said at the beginning, just posting content and not engaging at all is another big one I see. People are very used to traditional forms of media. So when you put out a radio ad, a magazine ad, wherever your traditional forms of media are, sending out a mailer, you set it and forget it. People then respond to you if they see your ad. But social media is completely different. And it's the first time in history we've really had that opportunity to interact with our audience in real time and show the people behind our business. So I think a lot of people don't realize the power of that and how beneficial that can be to connect with your audience.
And I think what a lot of people forget as well is the short life of a social media post, right? If you don't see it when it happens, it's not like a direct mail thing you might leave lying on the kitchen table or on a coffee table for the next 2 weeks, or use as a bookmark, or even a repetitive TV ad that you keep getting reminded. It's one post on social media and it's gone, sort of thing. So another thing that intrigues me, how have social media marketing strategies been affected by the 3-year lockdown? Have you seen a major shift in what businesses are doing, or not necessarily?
Well, I see them doing a lot more of it. I definitely saw a huge shift to people kind of flocking to these platforms when the pandemic happened, and people were forced almost to learn how to use it. So I think in that there's been a lot more influx on the platforms. I think people are leaning more on authenticity, which is that's a big buzzword, but I think people are starting to realize the power of just showing up and not being curated. That TikTok style video is becoming really, really big. And the meta platforms are trying to compete with that with TikTok. So they're giving the Reels preferential algorithm treatment. And they're so easily scrollable, and people are so distracted in this day and age. I think that type of content has really taken off in the past 3 years, and I think it'll continue to do so because there's more people, because we have a short attention span, and because it's just so easy to consume. And it's 9 times out of 10, that type of content is real. It's off the cuff. It's not it's not scripted where somebody's standing in front of a camera. I mean, every once in a while, they practice that dance a lot before they did it. But other than that, it's very much, hey, I'm reacting to this video, or I'm doing, I'm talking about this thing. I'm in the grocery store and I'm, talking about things. So it's very raw. It's very real. And I think people are craving that. And I think part of that too is because we lost that connection when there was a lockdown and we all weren't leaving our houses. We were able to connect in other ways. So there's that piece of it as well.
So I'm curious, what are your thoughts about reposting content? Because for some small businesses that are very, there's solopreneurs out there that are doing everything themselves and having to come up with a whole schedule of content is it's very labor intensive for them. So is there a downside to, because tweets and social media posts are so fast, right? People just see them in a blink of an eye. Is there any problem that you can see of reposting them?
Not necessarily. It does depend a bit on the platform you're talking about, because if you retweet, then that's going to go a little bit further than sharing a post on Facebook. Unfortunately, Meta platforms just they don't give the same reach to a shared post. If you're sharing a post versus posting natively, they're just not going to show it to as many people. And I think one way to get around that is you can try to add some of your own thought to it, try to add a little bit of originality. So if you see a post that really resonates with you and you think your audience would enjoy it, and you can add a couple of your own thoughts to it, and that's going to make it go a little bit further than just a repost and that's it and not saying anything.
What if it's
and
your
that kind of
own
holds
content,
true.
though, that you're reposting? What if it's your own content?
Even if I share my own post, so if I go onto Facebook or LinkedIn and I hit share, because on Instagram you have to share it to a story, which is also that actually can work really well when you share it to a story because you're reaching different people and you can get a little bit different engagement. But if I go onto LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook and I hit share and I share my own post, that second post still won't go as far, which is unfortunate. So in that case, I would copy paste, honestly. And I'm a huge proponent of repurposing. And it's kind of what Peter was saying before, where it's so quick, right? And not everybody's going to see it and it's going to be gone tomorrow. So if you have something from a couple months ago that you can repurpose, yes, do that, please. And if you have one piece of content that's a long form piece of content, if it's a longer video, if it's a longer blog post, break that up and use that in many different places. So make that into a quote graphic. Take a snippet and and use that as a piece of content. Take a piece of your blog post and use that as your, short form content for the day, and then use other pieces later on. So repurposing content and reposting your content is great if you can copy paste it, but the share button itself is kind of where it becomes problematic.
Okay. That's good information.
And of course, Twitter get upset if you try and post the exact same tweet too quickly after the one you've done before. They don't like that, right?
Right.
Yeah, Twitter is finicky. Well, I guess they're all finicky, really. But yeah, Twitter, if you're retweeting and you're adding different commentary, then they're okay with that. But if you're just retweeting the same thing, yeah, they don't like that.
Right. So at what point should a business owner consider paying for social media ads then?
I think when it gets to a point where they're starting to see a result from their own efforts and they're big enough where they don't have the time, but they need the visibility. So it's where okay, I have a lot of content, I have a strategy, I've been executing, and I want to keep doing this, but I want to focus on what I do well. So now it's time to hand this over.
Okay. So we see some businesses and some influencers particularly seem to have a knack of getting content go viral in a very short space of time, whether it's video or text. And through that, they build up an army of ravenous and rabid fans that will promote them. So what's the blueprint for achieving that? Because many of them do it for totally different reasons and with totally different content. From my observations, there doesn't seem to be a common thread. So what's your advice to the entrepreneurs who are trying to build an army of fans or advocates? How do you start doing that?
I wish I had some inside secret on exactly how to go viral, but I don't know that anybody has the exact formula for that. But I do have a few things that could work for that. One is if you're able to jump on a trending topic, if you see something that is doing really well and you can add your own take on that, that can work really well. There's always certain topics that are going to do well: money, time, how to lose weight. I mean, how to eat healthy. Like there's certain topics that you know are going to draw people in.
Right.
Um, and using those titles that can be, and I don't really like to use the word clickbait because I don't want to mislead people. I never suggest misleading people. But if you have
Sure.
a topic and you can make that engaging, 5 ways to do this in a month, right? It
Hmm.
entices people a little bit more. So that type of thing can also help your content go further. Collaborating with other people can make your content go further. So if there's somebody that has a larger audience than you, and that kind of goes back to that engagement, if you're contacting them, commenting on their post, maybe they'll consider doing a collaboration with you. And then you're going to go a little bit further in that way as well. And then once again, that authenticity piece. Don't be fake
Right.
because people aren't going to, they're just not going to respond to that. So you can kind of see that common thread in a lot of things that go viral is it's very raw, it's very authentic, and people aren't, they're just themselves. They're not they're often not trying to go viral. It's usually they
It
talk about a
happens,
topic
sure.
and then they're like, it happens. Yeah.
Hmm. But
Mhm.
when you're choosing topics, you've got to be relevant too. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm just thinking of the video Rich Men North of was it Rich Men North of Virginia or the country singer who his video went viral. It's what's all? Come on, Kathleen, help me out here.
Oh,
Rich Men North of Washington, Virginia. I don't know, whatever. And he's a sort of everyday guy who's ranting somewhat about the elite bankers and
oh yes, right.
middle class losing out and all that. And he's not a good singer, he's not a good musician, but it just caught the right. It came at the right time. So what I'm trying to say, though, as popular as that is, and as many millions of views that got, it would be silly if you're a conventional banker to try and link anything of yours to that. You'd be doing yourself a serious disservice. But on that score, Nicole, what about groups on Facebook and LinkedIn, groups and pages? Is a good way to get into relevant groups. So if you're in the healthy eating industry, for instance, and you start putting posts in those groups and engaging in those groups, does that help your cause?
Yes, I'm a big fan of groups. Facebook more than LinkedIn.
Hmm.
I think they're still not as valuable. People don't use them quite as much. But if you find an active one on LinkedIn, it can be helpful. They're just not as popular as the
Sure.
Facebook ones. But I actually think this day and age, groups are more important than pages
Hmm.
Mhm.
Facebook. I think it's important to have a page as a public facing entity, but if you can go to a group and you can interact as your page or you can interact as yourself, make sure that you have your page linked to your personal profile, um, then that can really take you far. But you have to make sure that you're not just posting, that you're actually talking to people and that
Hmm.
you're doing it on a regular basis. So if you can find one or two groups that are really active and they really have the audience that you're looking for in those groups, then it can be a really valuable use of your time.
Mhm.
Especially I see this a lot with local companies, and I don't necessarily mean local to me, but just local. You have a brick and mortar location
Yeah.
and you're trying to reach the surrounding area. Most places have a community group, and
Hmm.
that can be hugely, hugely valuable. I see it work a lot with profits, and most people don't take advantage of that. And I think it's an underutilized resource,
Mhm.
Hmm.
especially on
Hmm.
Facebook, especially on
Hmm.
Facebook.
Yeah,
Right.
we have a really good example. Sorry, Kathleen, a really good example. I live on a farm. I'm not a farmer, but I choose to live in the country. And just up the road, we have a very big vegetable and berry farm. And there, the owner's young daughter, well, she'll be in her mid-20s now. I went to university, did marketing, and she's joined the farm. And she has a really, really good Facebook group. And she puts on there what's in stock, how it's going in the fields, photographs. And they have a huge following from quite a wide area around our community. People coming to buy from there. They have quite a big shop on the farm, right? And she's got it working really well. So I'm sure a lot of advantages for other businesses there. Sorry, Kathleen, I jumped in ahead of you. I
Not at
do
all, not at all.
apologize.
Just brings me to another question, though. Are there better times in the day that posts should be published?
Well, this is going to always be my answer. It depends. It depends on your audience. It depends on
Mhm.
the platform.
Right.
If you're looking at LinkedIn earlier in the day, definitely, because you're really trying to reach that professional audience. They're probably not there in the evening. Whereas when you're looking at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, people are more likely to go on there to waste time and just
Hmm.
scroll. And so that might be more in the evening time. Sometimes you can catch people middle of the day on Instagram. I don't have enough data on Threads and the other ones yet. I haven't been using them long enough, but it really it can depend on the platform, can depend on your audience, and the meta platforms actually will give you some insight as well
Hmm.
as to when your audience is on that platform. So if you're using their business suite and you go to schedule a post, it will actually tell you some ideal times, and that is taken directly from your audience. So it'll look different. If I have, two different clients I'm trying to
Hmm.
schedule on these platforms, it'll look different for each client. So it's data that's from your audience that's already following you and interacting with your content. So
Well,
it's
that's
really
good
helpful to look at
information.
that.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and on that one, it's if you have an e-commerce business and you're operating internationally, you've got to be very aware of time zone differences as well. On Twitter, I have a lot of followers in the UK and also South Africa and some in Australia. So if you want to catch them, you've got to be up for the UK 5 hours earlier than we would be talking to people here, right? And other parts even
Yeah.
more. That's also important as well. Sorry, Kathleen, again, I did it again.
No, no, go ahead, Peter.
No, I just wanted to interject with that one. So I know I had being an older guy brought up in a very conservative British stiff upper lip type background in Africa. When I came to Canada, I never used the internet until I came to Canada 19 years ago, and the thought I had to get involved in online business because I ended up with a health problem that stopped me with my farming activities. So I had no choice. And the thought of exposing any personal information on social media drove me nuts. It was really difficult for me to get started. Now I'm over it. What's your advice, though, to small business owners, maybe not that much younger than myself, who now have to have a social media presence and have this huge problem of revealing anything of their personality? What's your advice? How do they get over that?
Well, I think the first thing to realize with that is that you don't have to share everything to
Sure.
have an internet presence, and you don't have to share everything to be authentic. You can be yourself and still hold some things back. For instance, I very rarely will post photos of my children on my business
Hmm.
pages because that's a boundary that I choose to have.
Sure.
But I still feel that I maintain an authentic presence. I don't mind posting pictures of my dogs or my ducks or whatever else I might have going on. If I'm out at a networking event, I try to remember to take, a selfie with some of the folks there, or, like for instance, when we're doing this interview and we take a photo, and that's a way to show that authenticity
Hmm.
without showing everything. I don't need to tell
Sure.
you where I live and, what I had for lunch and everything else. So you can definitely draw a line in the sand and say, this is what I choose to share and this is what I choose not to. And that's perfectly fine. And I
Hmm.
think that can really help people have a presence when they understand that they're in control. They're in control of how much they're able to share and what goes out to the world. And there are definitely safeguards you can take so that you're not
Sure.
sharing everything.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And when I came to that realization, that allowed me to A, get more creative, and B, to do a lot more than I was doing at the time. And so yeah, that's very good advice, yeah, for our audience. Back to you, Kathleen.
So, Nicole, how can an entrepreneur determine their target market through a social media platform? Is there a way to determine that? Who's looking at your posts and how do they go about finding out what the demographic is of those people that are looking at it? Like, is there a way of doing that?
Yeah, so there are a number of people that will do studies on the different platforms and find out who's using them. So Google's a great place to start. Google, if they know, okay, these are the people I want to reach, which platform are these people using? And there's a lot of great information out there. There's a lot of research studies done on that. But the platforms themselves will also give you that data. And that will vary from platform to platform. But if you go in and you look at your analytics, if you started posting and you started interacting and you give it a little bit of time to build up, a few months of interacting and posting, you'll be able to tell. It will tell you the age, the gender, the location in the world. So if it's people in the US, people in Canada, people in Georgia, people in Massachusetts, people in UK. I mean, it'll tell you 80% of your audience is here and 20% is over here and 3 is over here. So you can really get deep down into that data if you so choose. And if you're unsure of which platform you should be using, give a few a chance, and then go into that data and say, okay, the people I want to reach are really responding on this platform after 3 months. So this is where I'm going to put my energy. So there's a few different ways you can go about it, but I would actually suggest both. Go look at the outside data from companies that are, external from these platforms, and then look at your data from inside the platform once you make that decision.
Oh, excellent. Wow.
Very good. What about, sorry, I've got an extra thing I just thought of that I need to ask Nicole, if I may. Use of AI, things like Chat GPT. How is that helping or hindering people in their social media marketing activities?
I think it's doing both. So I think it is a really great tool. I mean, if you're not a writer, if you're not creative, or you just don't know what to post, sometimes it can be really great. Where this can hinder people is when you start to use it exclusively. If you're not editing it, if you're just taking what it says and you're throwing it up there, then that is not great because people will know it's not you. And making sure that it's not too similar to what other people are posting, because I am starting to get to the point where if I'm on social media, I can tell when a post has come from Chat GPT. And that rocket emoji is really overused now because
Yeah,
they really will. I mean, I swear, you see that rocket emoji, it came from Chat GPT. So you really need to edit it and make it your own, but it can really be helpful if you need to start.
Right.
And I find that's really where it is the most helpful.
No, I agree with you 100%. We use it and we find it has some words that are real favorites, and everything you get it to write for you, those same 2 or 3 words come up. So we edit everything and take a lot of those emojis out as well. What I found, I just tried something that I picked up from another marketer, and I asked Chat GPT to give me a persona for a certain business direction we were thinking of going in, who would be our ideal customer, and I gave it a whole lot of parameters, and it was amazing what it spat out. Hey, Kathleen, I mean, quite incredible, and
very
wow,
detailed. I couldn't believe the amount of detail it came up with.
Yeah, this thing is useful, But again, you've got it's a tool. It's a tool. Yeah. It's not a.
Exactly.
It's not magic. Good. Well, thank you, Nicole. And before I hand over back to Kathleen no, you've got a. Sorry, I'm jumping in again. Back to you, Kathleen.
So, Nicole, we are running short on time here, but please tell us, how do people contact you?
Thank you so much for asking. So you can find me on my website, monomoysocialmedia.com. I am on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, Monomoy Social Media, or you can find me under my name, Nicole Porter, on LinkedIn as well, which is where I do most of my interactions. So that's the best place.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
I missed the third one. Twitter, LinkedIn is where you do most of it. Was it Instagram?
Yep. I do Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter under Monomoy Social Media. And then I do LinkedIn as well, under my own name, under Nicole Porter, which is where most of my interaction is. So it'd be great to
we will find you on the ones we haven't found you on. So that's great. Before Kathleen wraps it up for our guests, both video and audio. For the audio guests, you will find all the contact details for Nicole in your description on whatever platform you happen to be listening to this on. And as always, we've had another interesting guest. We'll have another one next week. And to make sure you don't miss our new guests coming up and the guests that we've just had, sign up for our newsletter. We only send you one email a week, and there is a form to sign up for the newsletter on our website, theyakkingshow.com. That's it for me. Back to Kathleen.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Nicole. We so appreciated having you. And thank you all once again for tuning into our show. And if anyone is interested in being a guest on our show, please join us or visit us rather at theyakkingshow.com. All you need to do is click on the contacts tab where you will find a short application form. And we would love to hear from you. So until next time, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.